Harassment.
Tomorrow.
Embarrassing.
See, copy editors are people too. These are a few words copy editors come across that they have trouble spelling correctly. Hi, my name is Tommy Hilliard, and this is the official podcast for the Online News Association at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. We are here covering the ACES2018 National Conference in Chicago, Illinois. Magicians, illusionists, and dogs all have tricks, but so do copy editors. Here is one trick for spelling shared by Sarah Gray, the founder of Gray Editing.
I actually use the custom dictionaries in Word to flag certain things. So if I'm working on a book where somebody has a really complicated name that I find difficult to recognize right on sight, I might put the misspellings of that in my custom dictionary in Word so that they're always flagged. And I know when it's showing up differently than it should be. Also, words like pubic comes up instead of public. And 99% of the time when you're working on something related to political science, the intended word is public. Yes. And that is something you really don't want to accidentally let slip through.
I think a really smart thing to know is to know yourself and to know what you have trouble spelling, because if you had trouble spelling it in the third grade, you might have trouble spelling it when you're a professional copy editor. And it's just a matter of looking out for those things and knowing to look up what you're uncomfortable with.
That was Courtney Rukan, Deputy Multi-Platform Editing Chief at the Washington Post, giving insight on how finding yourself is the most important trick of all. David Brindley is the managing editor at National Geographic, and he stresses the importance of editors having editors to edit their writing, even if they're a friend.
The big trick that I have is that everyone needs an editor. I'm an editor, my editor-in-chief. I edit her. She writes a monthly column, and she sends it to me and one of the other editors to say, what do you think? Give me your edits. And just to have somebody looking over your shoulder to making sure that your spelling is correct, your grammar is correct, that's so important, because we can't know what we don't know. And so sometimes it takes somebody else to point that out for us. That's the biggest trick, is not to rely just on your own knowledge, but to really enlist the help of others. And you can do that as a student just by having a friend read behind you.
Megan Paolone, the copy chief at BuzzFeed, tells us how her busy team uses different tricks to edit their live articles as they go up online. And it's okay to use a Google Chrome extension for extra assistance.
How I handle my team is, depending on how busy we are, we will often triage a story if it's already live, and run through and check for big picture stuff. So typos, misspellings, big style stuff, checking names. And then that's when we go, and after that we go through and do the more subtle editing, so fixing commas and punctuation and rewriting sentences. One of the big things that we've only started using in the last couple months, which is really great, is we use the Grammarly extension, which is, it's just a free Google Chrome extension, and your eye isn't always going to catch everything, and it red underlines things if they're spelled wrong, and most of the time they're things that we would have caught already, but you can run through a piece after to make sure you've caught everything. We also run spell check in Microsoft Word to make sure we're not doubling up on any words, because your eye doesn't always catch that sort of stuff, and to catch the very mechanical stuff that sometimes when you're thinking about a larger piece, we edit a lot of long features, your eye isn't always going to catch that stuff.
Heather Saunders of Just the Right Type Editing gives insight on a great way to proofread your writing.
I find that if you're looking at a physical document, if you change the way it looks in any way, you'll see it that much easier. So if you change the font size, if you change the font color, if you change the layout on the page, if you turn it sideways and read it line by line, anything that breaks it down from the meaning and the content to the individual building blocks.
Sandra Schaefer, Director of Communication Development at the University of Illinois, lets us know how professionalism is just as important as the nuts and bolts.
I work with business students in written and oral communications. So I work with them to evaluate their writing for business purposes and their presentation skills for, say, interviews or client presentations after they finish their degrees. So some of the things that we cover have a lot to do with professionalism and the image with which they present themselves. A lot of the nuts and bolts of things like grammar and mechanics and spelling, they actually do a really great job on. They're very smart, very competitive students, and what they're looking for is to give their writing and their speaking skills an edge that makes them stand out above their peers within their field.
I'd like to thank the speakers from the conference who took the time to speak with me about the wide world of words. That concludes this episode, and tune in next time, where I sit down with speakers who share ideas and advice about women in the field of journalism and editing. Thank you all for listening.